Hello, 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 everyone. Welcome to another episode of Sree's daily global COVID-19 show. My name is Sree Sreenivasan, and it's my honor to convene this daily conversation around all things COVID-19. On this show, we discuss the health, financial, and inequality crises happening all over the world. We're coming to you live from New York, and it's episode 179. That means we've been on the air for 179 straight days, including weekends and holidays and everything. We are going to hit episode 180 tomorrow. That means 6 months of quarantine, 6 months of pandemic, and 6 months of these crises. For episode 179, we have a very special topic with special guests. Engaging students beyond Zoom as we prepare for the start of the school year in the United States. But what we talk about will be of interest to people around the world. We'll be joined in a few minutes by Leonard, consultant, former principal, Sage Day Schools in New Jersey, psychotherapist. We'll also be joined by Dr. Nancy Sulla. She's an expert on hybrid learning. She's with IDE Corp, Innovative Designs for Education, and Ediquity, Virtual Learning. She's at nsulla on Twitter, and he's at ChrisLeonard22. Please follow them on social right now. Please hit share so folks can join us. My co-host is Rose Horowitz, one of the producers of the show, and she'll be also with us in a minute. She's a journalist and creator of the hashtag Women to Follow. Please follow her at Rose Horowitz 31. We are live right now on Facebook, on Twitter, on YouTube, and on LinkedIn. Hi, everyone. I'm Sree. Thank you for being here. I'm the Marshall Loeb Visiting Professor of Digital Innovation at Stony Brook School of Journalism and the co-founder of Digimentors, a social, digital, and virtual events consulting company. Our motto, don't cancel your events without talking to us. Don't even plan your virtual event without talking to us first. We've done events for 50 people and 100,000 people. We bet your event is somewhere in the middle or somewhere along those lines, and we'd love to chat about anything to do with virtual events. So please get in touch, or if you'd like to have your own talk show like this, we can work with that. We can work on that with you as well. If you've never seen the show, we've been on the air for, as you heard, almost 6 months. And we've had more than 1 million viewers, 122 million social impressions, more than 300 guests, 175 of them women, from 62 cities, 16 countries, including the chief scientist of the World Health Organization. We're in partnership with Scroll Global and Scroll.in, and our archives are at youtube.com/Sreenet, youtube.com/Sreenet. You can watch every episode that we have put on the air here. We're very grateful to our producers, Rose and Vandana. Vandana Menon is Vandana_Menon. They make it possible for us to do all this work. And you'll meet Rose in just a minute. Please hit share right now so that your family and friends, anyone who's interested in schools and the topic of education, and that's everyone, should be watching with us. Now, let me bring on stage Rose Horowitz so that she can say hello to you, and then we can bring on our guests. Hi, Rose.
Hi. Hi, Sree. Good morning.
Good morning.
I think I saw you at 9 p.m. last night, so here we are.
Yeah, we finished our last night's episode at about 10:15, and here we are at 9 a.m. This is a rare Saturday morning show. The reason we're normally on the air at 9 p.m. on weeknights and Sunday nights, but as things have gotten a little better with the pandemic in New York and New Jersey and Connecticut, where you are, we thought we should give our viewers a chance to take their Saturday nights, and also for you and Vandana and me to have our Saturday nights back. So we're trying to do these 9 a.m. shows. So folks would love to hear your feedback. We're 12 hours earlier than normal, but that gives us a little bit of freedom on Saturday nights. So thank you, Rose, as always, for being here, for your amazing work. When people say, wow, 6 months, they should know that it's because of you and Vandana that we're able to do this, and we're very, very grateful to you. So set us up with our guests for today, and we'll bring them on. And to our usual folks who expect us to do our sponsor promos now. We're going to do them after a few minutes. So go ahead and tell us about our guests, and then I'll bring them
on. Our show today is with we have two fabulous guests, and it's the second in a series of shows we hope to do about education. We have with us Dr. Nancy Sulla, who is an expert on hybrid learning and helps schools and teachers to engage students. And we also have Chris Leonard, who is a consultant and former principal of Sage Day Schools and a psychotherapist.
Terrific. So let's bring them on and let's say hello to them. Hi, folks.
Good morning.
Hello. Good morning. Good morning. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being with us. Our first question always is, how are you? Where are you? And how's your family handling the pandemic these last 6 months? Dr. Sulla, let's start with you.
I'm doing well. I am in Florida, even though my offices are in New Jersey. I seem to be down in Florida and thought this was a good place to quarantine. And it's been surprisingly good. I'm a big extrovert. I love hugs. I love people. But I think all of the Zoom connections, I have been working remotely and providing remote keynotes. And so I'm actually kind of loving my new remote world of friends.
And if I may, could you show us that incredible view you have?
Chris said he liked the painting. Yeah. So I was like, well, you know, the real painting is painting that God put out there.
Oh, we love that. Thank you so much for being here. And we are very grateful for you sharing your expertise and your time. Chris, I know you also have a good view, but let's start with how you're doing.
Thank you, Sree. I'm doing well. I'm in Vermont with my wife, enjoying the last few days here, and have been working remotely for the last couple of weeks. My daughters are both in school. One's at the University of Vermont in her junior year, and my older daughter is starting her master's in social work at Boston College. And it's a combination of remote and hybrid for them, just as it is for the Sage Day schools right now. It's really hybrid. Which means a combination of live and remote. And so far, the school year is off to a great start, which always warms my heart.
And let's see, the painting behind you is nice. The paintings behind you are nice, but let's look out the window.
Okay, let's check it out. So the Green Mountains there.
Wow, look at that. Very nice. Well done. All right. So you said you're going to be back in New Jersey in a couple of days. Is that right?
Yes. I'll be back in New Jersey and back in the flow.
All right.
But,
yeah. So why don't we start right there with that question of being back in the flow? We have parents watching from all over the world, worried about their kids and going back to school. There are issues around how to put them in front of screens all day for so many days and so many months that we've been doing. So Chris, explain to us what's happening at your school, and then we'll go to Dr. Sulla.
Well, it's pretty much hybrid right now. So it means that students are in school some of the time and they're remote some of the time. So we try and make sure that every student is in school 2 days a week. And then 2 days a week or 3 days a week, they're remote. One day, everybody is remote. And in doing this hybrid model, we've really been trying to take a lot of cues from Nancy, who had some terrific ideas about hybrid instruction and how this is really an opportunity to do education differently. The old model of education is really based on preparing people to work in factories. And we haven't had, that kind of need or preparing workers for that sort of workforce in quite some time. We live in an information age. We're now in the fourth industrial revolution. Learning needs to be more individualized. Learning needs to have more choice in it because our whole culture is more choice-based than it was. This whole notion that you have 30 people in a room all doing the same thing at the same time is really outdated. And one of the troubles with trying to deliver instruction virtually is that people have been trying to do the same thing virtually, that they were doing, let's just teach 30 people all at once and keep them on a Zoom meeting for an hour. And Nancy can speak to this more. It's not engaging. And it's the same thing with therapy. With therapy, you have to make extra efforts to ensure that you're connecting with people, that you're engaging people. You can't sit back in the chair and just say, kind of have that kind of passive approach. You really need to be engaging people actively on the screen.
We're looking at this chart that you shared with us. Tell us what we're looking at.
So shows the increase in anxiety, which is the light blue or the lighter blue, depression, which is the darker blue, and then combined anxiety and depression in U.S. adults just between May to July 2020. And you can see that the increase in adults who are reporting either anxiety or depression or both is quite significant. And this is concerning. And one of the reasons for this, I think, is the profound uncertainty that we're all coping with. Human beings, we like to believe that we can be certain about what's going to happen. The truth is we can never be certain about what's going to happen. Life unfolds and we never know exactly how it's going to go. But we do like some predictability. We do like to have a sense that things are going to be as we expect them to be. And right now, increasingly as this wears on, we have less and less of that sense that we know how things are going to turn out. And I think right now in particular, I'm sorry, go ahead, Sree.
No, please.
I think right now in particular, as we transition back into school, I think that anxiety more because we've had this kind of lull during the summer and people have been able to be outside in the chair and people have not, if people have chosen to get together in large groups, and we've seen what has happened when people have chosen to get together in large groups, it hasn't always played out well. And so now as we face going back to school, parents, students, and teachers and administrators are understandably anxious about how is this going to play out? What is this going to look like? What will the impact be on me? So that is, that I think the length of time that we've been in the pandemic and then this shift into this new season and this change, I think that we're going to see an increase for the time being, at least.
Thank you. And this is from the Kaiser Family Foundation website at kff.org. And I'm sure someone will be tweeting and sharing this as well. Let's go to Dr. Nancy Sulla. First, a thought on this chart, and then we'll show folks your work as well.
Well, I think it's very scary because as schools have been trying to figure out, what to do with students, there's that sense of providing instruction for all, but all seems to be those who are able to connect, those who have access, and I don't mean just technology access. I mean access to be able to, for instance, watch a video and take in the learning from that. And I think that in March, when schools closed and everyone was scrambling to figure it out, there were a lot of children who just kind of got left out in the fringes because if you didn't fit into that, main driveway, we can't deal with you yet. And so I think there are a lot of issues that came out of that then spilled over into parents. And I imagine too, think about it. For adults, what happened in March was all of a sudden people were told, that's it, school's closing tomorrow. And parents have their children home, not quite knowing what to do with them, especially if they were trying to also work remotely. The kids weren't exactly sure what to do. So we kind of had a big mess. And what I like to tell people when I talk to parents, I say, let me assure you of two things. One, we need a do-over. We need to just say, March was messy. Schools didn't get it right. Parents didn't get it right. Kids didn't get it right. There were a lot of things. Everybody was trying as hard as they could. Now we have the opportunity to actually design for the fall. So let's just have a do-over, put that behind us and move forward. And the other thing I tell parents is, remember, you are not homeschooling. You are managing a home-based learning environment. So, schools are still responsible for the instructional side of it. All you need to do is create a home-based learning environment and manage that for your kids.
And we're looking at your company, IDE, and you see here that I love this graphic. Tell us what this tells, what this means. You're helping students change the world.
You know, it goes back to my early roots. I always wanted to be a teacher. I became a teacher, but I became a teacher in the late 70s. And post-Vietnam War, we actually did not have a lot of children. I'll let you guys do the, figuring there that if all the guys are over in Vietnam, we weren't having a lot of children over here. So it was very difficult to be assured that you would have a job for the long term. So I decided maybe I'd go into another field. And it was my dad who convinced me to go into computer science. And after working for a couple of years as a manager, systems analyst, programmer, I just said, you know what? I really, my calling was to be in education. And I went back into education at a time in the 80s when schools were trying to figure out what to do with technology. Interestingly enough, what I saw being out in the real world was that technology seamlessly changed the way businesses work. And that wasn't happening in schools. So I started out to redesign instruction to create classrooms that were much more student-centered, all about engagement, empowerment, leading to efficacy. Because my goal is for every student to be efficacious, meaning they can take on any challenge, they can do anything they want. And so I started designing what was called LATIC, the Learner Active Technology Infused Classroom. I shouldn't say was, because it's not really past tense. We still do that. It's just that the pandemic has gotten gotten us thinking in a variety of ways. But the reality, we found that when the schools did close, all of our LATIC teachers and students were able to just shift over seamlessly. And it's because at my core, I want to put students in charge of their own learning. I believe in empowerment, engagement, empowerment, and efficacy. And so my goal has been to partner with school districts to position students to change the world. And one of my defining moments a few years back was when I was in a school in Randolph, New Jersey, and I heard that one of the fourth graders said, we spend so much time solving real world problems that I know I'm only in fourth grade, but I think I could change the world. And I thought, exactly, I can never retire.
We love hearing that. We are going to hear from our audience. There are people watching around the world. They're sending their greetings. And I want to just show a couple of comments, and then we're going to thank our sponsors, and then Rose is going to take over and ask you lots of tough questions. She's a much more interviewer, so watch out. Here's Stefan saying, my friend and neighbor, an expert on children's mental health, the wonderful Chris Leonard. And Stefan is getting ready for his show, which airs at 10 a.m. Eastern, so it starts in about 40 minutes. It's called a Spin It Social Hour. Let's talk visuals and social media. And his special guest is Ricardo Jose Mujica from Montclair, New Jersey, who is a big-time artist, as you can see his painting right there. So check out the Spin It Social Hour and find Stefan at Spin It Social. Let's look at a couple of other comments. Jonathan Borstein is watching from the East Village, right around the corner from one of NYU's dorms and down the street from one of the new schools. And Jonathan's been watching for 179 days in a row from the East Village. So thank you. All right. Yeah, thank you. Edmund's watching. Donna is watching. Donna has already shared this video. We appreciate that. And so many other folks are asking questions. And we'll bring in these questions. And Edmund says, beautiful green mountains of Vermont. And they're asking questions. And Rochelle is watching from Hastings-on-Hudson. And Florence says that is echoing Dr. Sulla saying you're a great hugger. So that's... And we will also, another reason I want everyone to tune in and stay tuned is that we're going to hear about that starfish pin that she has on her jacket, Dr. Sulla. She's going to explain what that is. It's got a nice story behind it as well. So before we do all that, we've got to pay some bills. We're going to give our guests a chance to catch their breath, go on Facebook and share, and on Twitter and share, and we'll be right back with them. So thank you very much for being here, everybody. We want to thank our sponsors for making this possible. So let's start by thanking Muckrack Academy for creating the Muckrack Academy. It's Fundamentals of Social Media course with me and my team. And you can get this free course right now, mrac.co/social, and you get a fundamentals certificate when it's done. It's about 2 hours of work, and in 2 hours, you can do it in 2 hours or 2 days or 2 months. So definitely check that out. mrac.co/social, mrac.co/social. More than 4,000 people have taken that course. We're also grateful to The Inventor in You, a step-by-step guide to your first invention by Charles Cunnincarroll, developer of more than 80 patents, at Inventor Charles, and guidetoinvention.com is his website. The Inventor in You. Please check out guidetoinvention.com. We're also grateful to our friends at Nunbelievable, divinely delicious cookies on a mission. Each handcrafted cookie provides a meal to those in need. One cookie equals one meal. 20% off with the code SREE, SREE, at nunbelievable.com. Promotional consideration provided by the newest Indian films with subtitles are skipping theaters and coming straight to your home exclusively on Hotstar. Stream the latest releases now with Hotstar Premiere Nights, hotstar.com/US. We are also grateful to She's on Call, Sundays 11 a.m. to noon Eastern. This is a show where two surgeons, Dr. Sujana Chandrasekhar and Dr. Marina Korean, talk to their friends who are physicians and doctors and nurses about what's happening with COVID and so much more. This weekend, they have a best of episode that you can check out. And finally, big thanks to our events partner, Rise or Fall Together, the OneShare.World Interdependence Summit, September 17th, Thursday, 9 a.m. to noon Eastern, a world-class event with no charge that you can register right now, OneShare.World, and you can see Renee Fleming, the world-acclaimed singer, will be there, as will David Nabarro, the WHO Director General's Special Envoy on COVID preparedness and response. All right, let me bring back Rose. Rose, the doctors on She's on Call had the right idea, take Labor Day off. And so you and others who work on it with me are able to not worry about that show. But here we are on Labor Day weekend, 9 a.m. on the air with two fabulous guests. So are you ready to grill them for us?
I'm ready.
All right, let's bring them back. Let's reintroduce them. Chris Leonard is with us. Thank you, Chris, and Dr. Nancy Sulla. So over to you, Rose.
Okay. Chris, we spoke on the phone yesterday, about the whole idea of school refusal. And I had said to you, because I saw that you know, something you talk about, and I said, well, it's not relevant now because there is, there's like kids are barely going to school. But you said it's all the more relevant now. Can you talk about that?
Yes. In some ways it's relevant now more than ever because there are very varying degrees of school refusal. There always have. When people think school refusal, they think of students that just stay home. But many students would come to school pre-pandemic and they would spend the entire day in the nurse's office, or they would be, finding ways to find themselves into the assistant principal's office with repeated disciplinary issues. School refusal really stems from a number of causes. It stems, in many cases, from anxiety or depression or both. In some cases, it stems from a child being parentified and having way too much power and being allowed to make choices that really aren't appropriate for them to make, such as, I'm just not going to go. And sometimes having that power actually feeds the anxiety. And then, another feeder for school refusal is kind of a sense of exceptionalism. Well, the rules apply to folks in this way, but they don't apply to me. And so now with, hybrid instruction and remote instruction, and kids have an easy way out. They can say, well, I don't do screen time, or I don't learn this way. This doesn't fit with who I am. And then there are real feelings of being isolated and disconnected, and this lack of social connection that kids do get in school for some kids, the social connection is the only reason they go in the first place. You know, they really want to see their friends. What's going on in the classroom isn't compelling to them. So, you know, one of the things that we are, you know, really preparing for and working very hard with, both at Sage Day and in our Sage Thrive programs, where we place our therapists in school, is re-engaging students. You really do need to have that connection, that, you know, connection with individuals, not just with a group, to really engage students and bring them back in, find out what their concerns are. Some students are very frightened. Some students are anxious or depressed and feeling, oh, this will never come to an end. What's the point? Why should I continue my education? So it's really kind of connecting with kids and understanding and being empathic to those experiences in order to re-engage them and get them to join back in. And then on the instructional side, it's a matter of providing experience for kids that is compelling, that is interesting, that is going to draw them in and is going to make them want to show up. So school refusal, you know, can look like it's gone, but it really is still very much a phenomenon. And you know, our methods of dealing with it have to be, the outreach has to be a little bit different. We would, pre-pandemic, we would go out to a student's home if need be, and that's not on the table right now. But there are ways of re-engaging students, and it's vital that it's done for all students really at this point.
Thank you. Very important points that I think we don't see much in the media. So I wanted to ask you, Dr. Sulla, if you can tell us some ways that you are working with Chris and with many schools to engage students.
Well, as I said before, I'm a big fan of engagement, and I love, Chris, what you just mentioned about the socialization process. What I've been saying lately is do something different. Let me take you back to the year is 1666, and we're in the midst of the bubonic plague, and a young man was sent home from university to social distance. Everyone was social distancing, much like today. And he went outside and he was sitting around by an apple tree, perhaps getting some shade, reading a book, and he noticed an apple fall to the ground. And he questioned why it fell to the ground as opposed to sideways or up or anything else. It was in the midst of the bubonic plague that Sir Isaac Newton defined the theories of gravity, optics, motion, the fundamentals of calculus, and modern day physics. I mean, think about that, because in the middle of a pandemic, our brains tend to go into overdrive in terms of being creative. And so I keep saying to everyone, you know, this pandemic is a great disruptor, and it is going to allow us to do something different, to change. So I warn schools and ask them, beg them, implore them, please don't just put a camera in a classroom and do what we used to do before. Let's think differently. I'm a big fan of problem and project-based learning so that we can give students real-world problems to solve. I've been talking to a lot of schools about engaging students in even problems around reopening their own towns and cities and villages so that they can be a part of the solution. So that if students can tackle a real-world problem, create a solution, advocate for that solution to a real-world audience, they become engaged. And then we follow that up with what we call activity lists, which are a variety of ways for students to learn so that they have a little bit of power. You know, in a time when we have such little control, give students control over how they learn. I may have to learn how to divide fractions, but can I watch a video? Can I read this text? Can I engage in this website? You know, give me a choice and I'll feel like I have a little bit more control over myself.
Thank you. That sounds, I hope a lot of schools are doing what you're saying.
We have a good number.
My question is, how many schools are doing this? And we spoke to Dr. Janet Taylor, who's a psychiatrist in Florida. I think her handle is Dr. Janet. And she said that in her area in Florida, about 30% of the students who were seniors in high school didn't graduate because they didn't show up. So, the ideal and just in knowing too, when we spoke to parents in Bridgeport on a show we did, who said one, they barely hear from the schools. Like the schools weren't giving them information about how the school year is going to go, what's going to happen, and that contrasted with what we heard from some suburban parents. So I guess, how big a problem, can you break down this problem a little for us in terms of what students in who have difficulty learning and have difficulty learning online, what's the case for them now?
Chris, you want to take that first?
Sure. I think it is a huge challenge. As Nancy alluded to, it's not only just having the basic digital access, because many students don't. And what needs to happen for those students is that we need to identify those students and provide that access. So we one of the first things we did back in March is we surveyed our students and said, do you have access to the internet? How many devices do you have in your home? Are you able to, with everything going on in your home, are people able to access the internet and communicate with other people? And where we found that students didn't have access or didn't have devices, we made sure that we provided them. That doesn't always happen. And then there are the students for whom the being on the screen all day, or the level, the expectation for independent work is just so difficult. And this is where there has to be individualized mentoring. So I have a feeling when you have 30% of the students just saying, I'm not even going to show up and come what may, as you said, the problem, patient. Nobody engaged that. Nobody said, hey, what's going on? What is making you not come in? How can we help? Because the answer may have been super simple. It may have been as simple as no internet access. It may have been as simple as no device. And, obviously the funding isn't always there for those sorts of things. It really needs to be. But assuming the funding is there, those are simple fixes in terms of getting a student re-engaged. And then in terms of students who have IEPs, who receive special services, we need to make sure that we are addressing the needs in the IEP. If a student needs visual aids, if a student needs individualized instruction, if a student needs things broken down into chunks, all of those things need to continue to happen. And so that's where that stand and deliver model of just placing a camera in a classroom and let's see what happens with these 30 students isn't going to work. It really does have to be differentiated, individualized, and peer interaction because kids to show
up. Hi, Chris. I think we're having a little bit of issue with your Wi-Fi, perhaps. But thank you for.
Oh no.
Yeah, but it'll be fine, I'm sure. Folks, we have some great comments coming in from people around the world. Thank you very much. We have a question here from Edmund, who's asking, what are the measures that can enhance the quality of hybrid or blended approaches? Dr. Sulla, you want to answer that?
Sure. So I developed actually a set of 7 attributes of hybrid learning with the intention of, and what we did was we spent a lot of time this summer training teachers and helping them rethink what would a good hybrid learning environment look like. And what I mean by hybrid, I'm not exactly aligned with the idea that hybrid has to mean kids are in school or not. For me, hybrid means whatever structures and strategies you use work as well at home as they do in school. So for instance, if, and I'll go back to the previous question, Rose, that you had asked about parents feeling like the students weren't engaged or the schools weren't reaching out. I still say to everyone out there, let's have a do-over, because we've been working with students in schools, administrators, superintendents all summer long to get school ready to reopen. Lots of new ideas for thinking about how we can provide instruction. And the thing is, we keep telling teachers, don't worry about, are you hybrid, are you remote, are the kids coming back? It doesn't matter. Fundamentally, as long as you create structures and strategies that work as well at home as they do in school, as students are going back and forth between home and school, we don't have to worry about saying, oh, well, now we're all remote again, so let's think about how to teach. Well, wait, now we're hybrid. Let's think about how to teach. That's going to waste time. So I'll give you an example. In the Learner Active Classroom, we use a help board. And pre-pandemic, teachers would have a place on, say, the board where students could go up and put their name if they felt they needed help. The idea is we want students to be resourceful and we want them to be resilient. So we want them, when they need help, to think about, well, what should I do? Let me reread the directions. Then let me look to see if there's something in the resource area that would help me. Let me go and look to see if there's a peer expert who could help me. But if I still need help, I learn to self-advocate and put my name on the help board. When suddenly students went home and everyone was home, our teachers just designed a digital help board. So students would put their name on a digital help board, and then the teacher could connect with them if they needed help. What we've now said is, even if students come back to school, it's a digital help board, because the digital help board works as well at home as it does in school. And I don't want students' brains to have to stop and think, wait, where am I? How do I get help? It just needs to be the same. So we start with saying we need an atmosphere of continual motivation. And I talked before about problem-based learning. So kids are motivated whether they're home or in school. We need a landscape of opportunities for academically rigorous learning, so that, again, whether I'm at home or at school, there's always a way for me to learn. There are many opportunities, and so on and so on and so on. And I'm a big fan of, wrote one of my books on executive function. Executive function truly is the basis of all learning. If I can't focus, concentrate, shift attention from one thing to another, follow directions, etc., then I'm in the weeds. I can't learn, no matter how great a lesson or video you give me. So I believe we need to focus a lot more on executive function. And we actually have a website that we've just threw together during the pandemic called For the Kids, but it's the number 4, forthekids.idecorp.com. It's actually for teachers and parents to grab a lot of graphic organizers to help build executive function, because if we can, the more you use that part of the brain, the more that it builds. And we know that we can build students' executive function. We just have to keep using it. And just like with the help, if all I have to do is raise my hand and wait for the teacher, not a lot of executive function. If I have to think, oh, I need help, let me reread the directions. Let me go look at a resource area. Let me look for peer experts. Let me put my name on lots of executive function right there. So we can create a lot of structures and strategies for students to be building executive function. I actually think that this generation of students is going to be stronger than ever.
That's fabulous to hear. I guess my question, as I was listening to you, is what happens if it's your first child, they're going to kindergarten?
And I love kindergarten. And what I've been saying to kindergarten parents is, remember, your child doesn't know what school is like. What does it matter? This is a real reboot for them, unless they had older brothers and sisters who maybe told them a few things. But I have a blog post called the 5 Types of Videos to Rock the Fall. And one of the videos that we recommend teachers make is the morning message, the morning meeting for primary students, where the teacher is literally saying, good morning, boys and girls. It's Friday. Let's look at the date. And then going through everything you would do in school, including singing, etc. So we had some of our consultants make these. And you can, if you find my blog, Nancy Sulla blog, just Google it. When you find my blog and you go to the 5 types of videos, you can actually watch all the videos. And what we did is we had some of our team members create morning message videos for kindergarten students. And then we asked our team, for any of them who are parents of younger students, 3, 4, 5-year-olds, to have them watch it and record it for us. And we're going to put together a blog post on that. But it was wonderful because exactly what I thought happened. Students are watching along. They're singing with the teacher. The teacher says, what's the weather out? And then she says, like, wait, I can't hear you. And the kids start screaming at the computer. And one child looked at his mom and said, it's a video, right? But, like they get into it. And also, as predicted, students will watch it over and over and over again. So what a wonderful way to build that social and emotional learning connection so that students engage with the teacher. There are many, many ways that we can think differently about what school looks like. I wouldn't even want to think about trying to have a Zoom discussion with 20 kindergarteners at home, all online at the same time. But the morning meeting video just does it. And our students today, kindergarten students today, I mean, at 2 years old, they're grabbing phones from their parents to go and look up things. So play games, find, letters of the alphabet, whatever. I think that this is the perfect generation to be the digital pioneers, if you will, of reinventing school. Chris, I'm not letting you talk.
No, I'm just listening to you. I love that perspective, Nancy, because I think that is so true, that these kids are so comfortable with screens. They are so comfortable with accessing information themselves. They're so comfortable with looking things up so that they really already are self-directed. They are actually so uncomfortable with let's all come sit on the rug together and don't touch each other. So, I think the kind of digital learning actually comes quite naturally to them. Where there would be a concern with kindergarten, it would be, that kind of, how do we get people used to sharing physical space and all of these things? But the whole notion of sharing physical space is different now anyway. Mm-hmm. I was in a store recently, and somebody had an infant with them, and everybody in the store is wearing masks, and somebody said to me, my gosh, babies, they're just going to assume that this is normal. And yes, they are going to assume that it's normal. And children are resilient, and children do adjust much more easily than adults. We've seen this with people expressing their gender identity more openly. The students have no trouble with this at all. Share a bathroom? I don't care. It's the adults that, get all upset and go, oh my gosh, you can't have this kid go into that bathroom. And the kids are really doing very well with it. And I think they will be flexible and generally do well with this. The students who've been in school, the high school seniors, the kids who, this is my big year on track or baseball or field hockey or whatever it is, those kids who are losing those seasons, this is hard for them. College seniors, they want to really enjoy their senior year in college. It's hard for them. I think kindergartners are going to do great.
Okay, let me ask, maybe you can both answer this question. But one of the big issues, I think, is, and you've touched on it, but let's jump to 6th grade. Student is now in, has to be usually in our country, from elementary school to middle school, they've got multiple teachers. If a child has executive function issues or something, or ADHD or dyslexia, how does that child learn the same way as, not the same way, but how do we help that child?
I think it depends on the child. Part of what you want to do with every child who's got learning issues is that you want to have done comprehensive assessments. And chances are, if that child has already been identified, they've had the educational evaluation, the social history, the psychological, which is really a cognitive assessment. And so there should be some understanding of what their strengths and weaknesses are. A lot of kids, I have found with learning issues, maybe they're a strong visual learner, or maybe they're not a good visual learner at all, but they're an amazing auditory learner. So you really do have to look and capitalize on those strengths. As Nancy pointed out, one of the advantages to video-based instruction is if you need to listen to something again, if you need to read something again, if you need to look over something again, you have that playback option. You can go back and look at it again. So one of the things that we have to make sure we're doing for those students is we're providing media for them that is going to be suitable to their learning style and to play to their strengths, rather than forcing them to, be held up by their weaknesses. So that's definitely something that we want to do. Differentiated instruction is important now more than ever.
I think that idea of playing to their strengths is so key and a great thing. Would you comment on this, Dr. Sulla?
Rosie, you said before, and I know, Chris, you mentioned as well, the socialization issue of school. And the reality is, school is where we build our social skills, sharing, listening to one another, debating, reaching consensus, looking at different perspectives to a situation. And I fear that a lot of schools feel like, well, if we're going hybrid attendance, where students are only going to be in school for, say, 2 days a week, we have to do all our lessons then. So I imagine students all coming into school, sitting socially distanced while the teacher basically offers lesson after lesson after lesson. And that couldn't be the worst approach, because, no, that couldn't be well, you know what I mean? It's not good. So the idea is, it's early, wait, I need more coffee, okay. The idea is that we need to make sure that our social environment is happening in school, so that our students can, even socially distanced, have a discussion, have a debate. Even when you talked before, Chris, about the kindergarten students and sharing, learning social skills, Google Jamboard, I'll give a shout out to Google Jamboard, is a fabulous, and you can also do this in PowerPoint, Microsoft PowerPoint. Don't want to leave anybody out here, where you can set up a screen with little cards on it and pictures, and you can move them around. So you put two students in a PowerPoint slide or a Google Jamboard to play with, I want this piece, I want that piece, and have to work together. You can actually simulate that, building those social skills and having that social awareness and self-management and all of the great SEL competencies. So we need to make sure that we take care of socialization. Well, then that leads to, how do students get access to instruction? Well, that comes through videos. I'm a big fan of an instructional video. Let me walk you through how to do something. And I might then say, okay, pause the video. I'm going to put the sentence up here. You answer the question. And then when you're ready, start the video again. And then when the video starts, the teacher can say, so here's the answer I got. What did you get? Let's take a look at this. And then you walk through. So you can have a more interactive instructional video. And I'm talking, 10 minutes, 15 minutes tops, so the student can engage. Here's why I love video so much. I'm a big fan of also looking at equity in schools, making sure everyone has equitable access to rigorous instruction. If you tell me that there's a lesson at 10 o'clock, if I'm available, then I can go. I mean, if you say there's going to be a lesson, a live streamed lesson at 10 o'clock, I have the opportunity to learn. If I can't get there at 10 o'clock, I don't have access. And we have to remember that we have students at home who have to take care of their younger siblings and get them online because mom and dad have to be out working. And we have some students who actually have to go out and work in order to bring in money. Their families, they're not available at 10 o'clock. And then we have students who might be our special ed population who, even though they can be online at 10 o'clock, as Chris, you said, maybe they're not a visual learner, maybe they're not the auditory learner, maybe they're not taking in the lesson the way it's presented. So fundamentally, all of those students lack access. It's one thing to have opportunity, it's another to have access. And unless you have both, you don't have equity. So the key here is, if we claim in schools that our goal is equity, we have to go with video-based learning, and not only having videos, but having how-to sheets, e-texts, a variety, so that as a student, I can watch it when I can watch it, and I can watch it over and over and over again, as many times as I need in order to learn. And then that frees the teacher up to have live Zoom sessions with small groups, one-on-one, and now I can address the needs of my special education students, my ELL learners, ELL, forget the learners. It's early. So anyway, you get my point.
I love that your coffee mug says peace on it, and that's great. Folks, we have so many comments and questions coming in, so we're just going to dive into them. Short questions and short comments. Mark says, do you think digital learning will help us get away from standardized testing? Chris, over to you.
I certainly hope so.
And Nancy?
I hope so as well. I think if you are facilitating well, you don't need summative assessments. You know exactly what your students know. We need to shift our thinking to that.
And Mark says, what about the impact on sports? And we heard a little bit about that, but talk to the athletes or the parents of athletes who are watching, student athletes. Chris.
Oh, this is tough. I love sports personally myself, and it really is hard. Having been a high school athlete myself and having had two kids who were high school athletes, to think that, what it must be like to be looking forward to the fall and thinking, ooh, it may not happen, or it probably won't happen. That is really tough. What I can say is do stay active and keep exercising. It's the best antidepressant there is.
And that's great. And Mark has a quick question for you. Tell us about the feathers in the background.
That is all Mrs. Leonard. My wife, Hillary, is a terrific decorator. So I actually don't know the origin of the feathers. I only know that when she puts something up on the wall, it's going to be great.
Thank you. I don't think this is the actual Jabba the Hutt from the movies, and he's spelling his name a little differently. But the question that's here is, isn't this a good time to restructure the classroom programs since we're adapting more and more technology? Nancy, do you feel that that's happening? And should we be doing even more?
Well, it's happening with my clients. Absolutely. Like I said, this is the time to do something different. We have to be able to step back and say, we're not just going to keep doing things the way we always did them, even though that's the original fear, but we have to think differently about what we have to do is think about learning. How do students learn? We need academic learning, we need social and emotional learning, and we need efficacy. Those are my three goals. How do we get there? We don't assume that because actually the way we were doing it pre-pandemic wasn't working either. I've been spending decades working with schools to redesign classrooms to be more student-centered and focused. So this is the time. Again, if you are a parent out there, let's get a reboot. Let's start over. Don't look back at March. Look forward to all the new ways that schools are delivering instruction, and give them a chance. Give them a second chance to show you what they can do for your students.
We love that. Florence says, Dr. Sulla is an inspirational, educational visionary. I love seeing that. And there's a good chance for you to tell us about the starfish pin you're wearing.
Oh, so there is a story from a book. Whoops, wrong side. There is a story from a book, The Star Thrower, that essentially there's a child on the beach, and a man, sees him from a distance, looks like the child is dancing. And as he gets closer, he realizes there are starfish all over the shore, and the child is throwing them back in the ocean. And he looks at the child and says, what are you doing? The child says, well, I have to save the starfish. I've got to get them all back in the water. And the man says, well, there's thousands of starfish out here. You'll never make a difference. And he picks up one starfish and he throws it into the water. And he said, well, I made a difference to that one. So this is what I love that, backward mirroring image. This is what all IDE consultants wear. And it basically means that we make a difference one teacher at a time. Teachers make a difference one child at a time. And I will say I was in a high school once where several of us were walking down the hall. We always wear suits. It's a way of honoring and respecting our clients. And then we have the starfish, and some of the high school kids said, like, are you with the X-Men? and I go like this, on to us, exit the building.
love that. And let's see who else is watching. Paula Kiger on our team at Digimentors is watching, and she's live tweeting. Please check her out on Twitter. She's at Big Green Pen. And Doug Levy is watching from San Francisco. He tuned in at 6 something a.m. in California. So thank you for being here. Rajneesh is watching from Kathmandu. Have either of you been to India or Nepal?
No, it's interesting.
No, but I'd love to go.
Okay.
I have not been to India, but we just partnered with a group, and through the Princeton Hive, we are going to start delivering self-paced professional development for teachers in India.
Oh, that's great. That's
Yeah.
That's really really good to know. Charles Cunnan Carroll is watching with Mary in New Jersey. Very appropriate topic, and he's a sponsor and supporter of our show. Sam is watching and says COVID-19 related depression and anxiety among the developmentally disabled population is also a growing challenge that's unique because of their limited options and ability to seek coping options. Any thoughts on that, Chris?
Yes, I think that is a real challenge because typically their coping options would be provided live. I think getting on screens and doing things remotely is particularly difficult for that population. So that has been something I've thought a lot about and have been concerned about for sure. I wish I could say, well, just do this and this is going to be the answer. But I think that is a concern that definitely needs to be addressed.
Thank you. We're so many comments coming in. Doug was talking earlier about what a fantastic explanation of this unique opportunity for learners. Florence says it works choices, meaningful, purposeful, self-directed engagement equals control. And Rowena says Nancy's work embeds an equity lens. So that's great to know about that. And on your website, you have a Black Lives Matter statement, and it's always good and very important to see that. So many more comments coming in. Charles says, love the suggestions of developing the executive functions. And tell us about your book, Dr. Sulla.
So I have a book called Building Executive Function, The Missing Link to Student Achievement. And it's really about how we can actively build that part of the brain. If you read the first chapter, and actually I think the first chapter of all of my books can be downloaded from idecorp.com, my website. But it shares a story of a man years ago who in an accident actually had his prefrontal cortex destroyed, lived, was fine, but lost his personality, became a different person. Essentially, he had lost his executive function. And because that part of the brain handles a lot of executive function. As it turned out, years later, when they tracked him, they found that he was a different person, but better than ever, if you will, and was able to handle all sorts of complex tasks, which indicated that part of the brain had regenerated. So the key is this book is all about getting students to use executive function skills will build executive function skills.
That's great. And we want everyone to know about your website so they can follow up with you. IDEcorp.com, Innovative Designs for Education, IDEcorp.com. And so people should definitely check that out. And for Chris, tell us about Sage Thrive so that people can understand about your work there as well.
Yeah, so Sage Thrive was an organization we developed in 2008. One of the things that we recognized in running the Sage Day schools is we needed to expand our continuum of care. So one of the things that we did is we saw that there were students who needed more intensive services that we provide at Sage Day, and that was where we opened the New Alliance Academy, which has a longer school day, longer school year, and embedded psychiatric services right there in the school. Then on the other side, we saw that there were students who needed a level of support in school, but they didn't need to be placed in an out-of-district placement like Sage Day. And that's where we created Sage Thrive, where we place a therapist in a public school or a private school, and we provide intensive supervision to that person, weekly supervision, where it's both group supervision and individual supervision, where we're really helping that therapist work in depth. We provide individual therapy, group therapy, family therapy as needed. We'll see a student as many times a week as they need to be seen. They can drop in for 5 minutes. They can do a half-hour session. And that really can help us make all the difference in the world in helping a student get through the school day. And it's something that I think is really important in this time. If we're going to be engaging students, if we're going to have students feel comfortable about returning to school, they're going to need that support. And having that kind of support, we really think it should be in every school.
Thank you so much. Tell us about the website so that people can find it. It's called sagethrivettoday.com. What else can people find there? I see download your guide to finding student mental health programs right on the website.
Right. So people can find access to related services that have to do with mental health. People can find numerous articles regarding school refusal, regarding how to fund mental health programs in your school, which is super important because that's always the primary concern. When you talk to administrators about bringing the mental health services, they're saying, well, how am I going to pay for that? I'm already tapped out. Another thing you'll find is a link to my own podcast, which is Conversations About Student Mental Health. I've had some great guests on my show, including Dr. Nancy Sulla. And so that is just an ongoing conversation with educators, with mental health professionals, with parents, about all manner of issues related to student mental health: anxiety, depression, school refusal, engagement, coping strategies, the need for parents. One of the most important things parents and educators need to do is take care of themselves. And I have a colleague, Pat Hobie, who was a director of special services for many years, and she works with me at Sage Thrive. And Pat is always saying, put the oxygen mask on yourself first. You know, it's like you're on that airplane, and when the pilot says, you know, put that oxygen mask on, put it on yourself, and then you can take care of your child. If you're not taking care of your child, you're not available for your child. And children, all people, react much more to what we see than what we're told. We have mirror neurons. We literally have these neurons in our brains that make us respond to what we see. And this is why people are so imitative. And it's why people are so much more engaged with what we say, with what we do than what we say. And so we can say reassuring words all we want, but if we are not feeling that sense of centeredness and calm ourselves, our kids are going to pick up on it, and that's going to feed their anxiety. So self-care is job one for everybody at this time.
We're just looking at a few of the comments before we start to wind up here. Mark says, one thing we're seeing is an increase in virtual performances being given in schools. This helps both institutions, the artists and the educators, both benefit. Rowena says, executive function is the key to success in all aspects of life. Nancy's work embeds executive skill function development everywhere. And this is amazing because I'd never heard that term in that way. I wouldn't have known EF from a BF until now, but now as soon as I saw EF, I knew exactly what it was. So Nancy, your crusade is working, and Shobana.
So EF is your new BFF.
There you go. I like that. That's great. And Shobana, who's a fabulous teacher here in New York City, says, I'll definitely share info about Sage Thrive with my school's health and wellness team. Thank you.
Excellent.
That's great. It's Sage.
We'd love to talk to you about it.
SageThriveToday.com. SageThriveToday.com. We have a question coming in from California. Since it's so early there, we've got to give priority to a question from there. What if we want to continue distance learning after COVID-19? Are there resources or online distance schools you can recommend? This, by the way, as you're thinking about it, is a question from Diana Rohini, who is going to be our guest tomorrow on our show. So she's going to be here Sunday for Positivity with Diana. She is the Chief Communications Officer at San Mateo County Health in California. And we'll be marking 6 months of the show. On Sunday nights, we try to be positive, and we have generally purposeful, positive people who can talk to us. 9 p.m. Eastern, episode number 180. I'm sure if I had told Rose when she agreed to help when we started that we'd be hitting episode 180, she might have fainted at that moment, but she did not, and she's still here with us. So tune in for Diana tomorrow. But here's Diana's question, and we're going to start with Nancy to talk about whether distance learning is an option after. Can parents who like that system do more of it?
I do think that schools are going to be thinking more about providing more distance learning opportunities, as well as organizations. We've talked about it ourselves, designing what we call global think tanks for students to engage virtually with one another, solving real world problems. So I do believe that down the road, you will have those options available. I couldn't tell you right offhand where to look right now, but Google it.
Chris.
Yes, I have some thoughts on that as well. I think that it must be an increasing resource. One of the ways in which education needs to change is it used to be that the teacher was the expert in the front of the room, and that, you know, like the encyclopedia, all the answers resided there or in the back of the book. That has to change. The truth is that there's more information on, you know, the web than the average person consumed in their entire lifetime. There's more information in one day's edition of the New York Times than a person in the 18th century consumed in their entire lifetime. The information is all out there. It's a matter of how do you access the information and how do you access good information. So I think that schools that don't leverage other sources of online learning are really cheating themselves and the students. One recommendation I have is look up massive online open courses, MOOCs. They are provided by numerous universities, and you can take an MIT course or a Harvard course or a Stanford course free of charge. So why not give yourself access to these fantastic, you know, professors in these fantastic institutions? You know, go for it. So that's one strong recommendation that I would have.
And so I'd like to ask Rose to ask the final question, and then in your answer, you can also give us some final thoughts as we wrap up here and get you back to your Saturday. So Rose, over to you.
Thank you. Thank you. I would like to start with Chris. What are 3 things that you can say to parents about how to model their behavior and how to help their student in this during COVID as they learn?
So I think, first of all, if you want your child to show up. If you want them, so you need to model showing up, being present, being involved, and staying engaged. The other thing I would say is the self-care. And with the self-care, I would say, again, I'm a big proponent of some form of exercise, whether it's yoga, whether it's taking a walk, whether it's cycling, whether it's jogging, whatever it may be, do something where you are exercising. There's actually research on strength training and how that really is an antidepressant, and any form of even cardiovascular exercise, excellent for health. So taking care of your physical health will help you take care of your mental health. And then modeling, staying engaged and being involved is super important, because your kids are going to respond much more to what they see than what you say.
Thank you. Thank you. Dr. Sulla, I mean, I don't know if I should ask this for you to address teachers in particular or students, but go ahead and tell us.
I'll address them all. I think that I would say, number one, structure. Structure makes us feel normal. It makes us feel comfortable. Parents at home, make sure you set up a structured home-based learning environment. Make sure that your student, whether or not they're in school, working remotely, or enrolled in an online school, that they get up at the same time every day, follow the same set of routines, make the lunch, put it in the refrigerator so that at noon, instead of going and trying to find out what to eat, it's already there. Structure really helps. I think the same thing with teachers, creating some sort of a structure that allows them to move through their day gracefully. And I would say for the second, I'm going to reiterate the self-care. Build into your day. In our Learner Active classrooms, we actually have students schedule their full day, how they're going to use their time based on learning opportunities. We want students to build in downtime, even if it's a 10-minute break to listen to music or to just lie down. Daydreaming is really good for building executive function. It builds creativity. So even if it's a matter of daydreaming, go outside and observe. Going outside and just observing something or looking out the window and observing actually also builds executive function. And it allows us to have that little bit of downtime. And then the exercise piece, we have to take care of ourselves. And there's plenty of exercise you can do right in your own home. And of course, there's plenty of videos that you can follow to engage in exercise. And I will give that last shout out to the athletes. And first of all, I'm really sorry, but just remember that, you know, even with the bubonic plague, eventually it was over and we moved on. So we need to do the, think ahead and realize that we might have to delay gratification, but eventually we'll be out of this. The best thing you can do for yourself is to keep yourself physically fit by doing that exercising, weight training, whatever you can do within your home environment. But also, this is the time to build your strategy. Every sport has incredible strategy, and visualization is a powerful, powerful teacher. Think about it. Olympic athletes do it all the time. Close your eyes, envision yourself out there on the field, on the court, wherever, and start building your strategy. When we can finally all get back to sports, you're going to be better than ever. You're going to crush it.
Thank you. What a note to end on. Let's look at a couple of the comments that have come in. Mark says, I think this new generation of students will be better at critical thinking than we are. Charles says, great program. Thank you. And thank you for your support. It's the support of sponsors like Charles that makes this program possible. So if anyone knows anyone who'd like to support us, please do let us know. And Charles says, cannot agree more about self-care. And so that's really important. And Shobana says, thanks, Sree, for the shout out and this great program. Regarding distance learning, our high school has been a member of the Global Online Academy for years, and my daughter was able to take advantage of great international online courses well before COVID. So that's great to see as well. And Shobana says, Common Sense Media has some great tips and suggestions for parents to help their kids with remote learning. I'm a huge fan of Common Sense Media. And Diana says, thanks for a great show. I learned so much. And Diana is an awesome mother, teacher. And as you heard, she's going to be our guest tomorrow night for Sunday Night Positivity with Diana. So everybody, please tune in at 9 p.m. Eastern. I will say, Nancy, the idea about thinking about strategy is so important. You wouldn't know this, but my wife used to be a world-class rifle shooter, sports rifle shooter, target, and winner of international medals and all of that. And she would say that the actual shooting the gun was only a small part of it. It's about visualization. It's about thinking. It's about strategy. It's about doing things which are in your mind as much as they're in your body. And so she would agree completely about how you can be a superior athlete, even if you're not on the field. And you have to be thinking and reading and understanding sports if you want to be an athlete. You can't just go out and just run nonstop. You've got to actually do the thinking behind it. So I love that. Thank you so much. And with that, we want to tell everybody that in addition to the show we mentioned with Diana, we have a show that's coming up on the radio, but also on the web. Anybody in the world can listen. Noon to 2 p.m. Eastern time today is Coping with COVID-19 on WBAI.org and 99.5 FM in the New York City area. We have Donna Mazik is going to be with us. She's the executive director of the National Association of School Nurses, such an important part of this story that we're talking about. And Melissa Grabois will be with us. She's an assistant professor and a historian at the University of Oregon. And then tomorrow morning is the New York Times read along. We'll have Diane Cardwell with us. She's a former reporter and editor at the New York Times. She wrote the inaugural Portraits of Grief. I'm sure some of our viewers and our guests remember that. She's the author of Rockaway, Surfing Headlong into a New Life. And then at night is Diana Rohini will be with us for Positivity Night at 9 p.m. We don't take the weekend off here. We do a lot of crazy work, and we're so grateful that we're able to do that. And that's what we shouldn't forget, that in the middle of the pandemic, people are out of work, people are sick, people are dying, and we are so grateful to everyone who is able to cope as we're doing here. And thanks to our fabulous experts today for being here. Chris, what are you doing on Saturday, the rest of your Saturday?
Well, you saw what a beautiful day it is in Vermont. I'm going to hop on my mountain bike and find a trail.
Nice. So thank you very much. Bye-bye, Chris. We really appreciate you.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Leonard 22 on Twitter. Please follow him. And Dr. Sulla, how are you? What are you going to be doing the rest of the day down in Florida?
Well, I am working on my book on hybrid learning, and I have to really get the manuscript done this weekend before my publisher just comes and hunts me down. So that'll be what I'm doing.
I thought you'd be safe in Florida, but you're not. So we wish you the very best as you...
I'm inside.
Well, will you come back and talk to us once the book is out, and we can help you
anytime
tell the story. Thank you very much, Dr. Nancy Sulla.
Thank you. Love your show.
Thank you. And she's Sulla on Twitter, so please follow her, and idecorp.com. And Chris's website is sagethrivetoday.com. Thanks very much, Doctor.
Thank you.
And Rose, thank you for another fabulous show that you've helped put together. One of the things about producing is getting great guests in a timely manner, and you were able to deliver again today. And you weren't able to do your usual tweeting, but I know that we had Paula and Vandana doing a lot of that. Yeah. So how do you feel about 180 episodes, 6 months of pandemic?
I can't even, I mean, I was going just counting the days. So now that it's 6 months, it's like I heard you say that. I said 6 months. How can that be? But, you know, I really have learned a lot. And today I do know, you know, covered some, you know, education, but still learning so much. And I think that's if there's a silver lining, we're getting it through these new things we're learning. And I hope that the approach that Dr. Sulla talks about somehow trickles down to all school districts, as she said, and we have equity.
Mark says, amazing show. Not a parent, but I'm an uncle of 2, and this topic means a lot to me. He's a mentor to many. Julie says, Diane Cardwell is the best, and she's our guest tomorrow, 8:30 a.m. Eastern. So on Sundays, we have an 8:30 a.m. Eastern show where we read the New York Times. By the way, look at this stunning cover of the Times Magazine, America at Hunger's Edge, as we hear how great the economy is and how it's all roaring back. This is a really tragic cover and a cover story here. A young girl with a loaf of bread, September 6, 2020, photographs by Brenda Ann Kennelly. And so this is one of the things we'll be talking about tomorrow at 8:30 a.m. Eastern time. And Florence says, thank you. This was most informative. Paula says, this was great. Thank you all. And thank you for sharing and tweeting. Paula and Harshit is tagging Binod. And Julie loves surfing, clearly. So she, because of the book that Diane has written about surfing in the Rockaways. People don't think of New York City as a place you can go surfing, but you can. So Rose, I'm going to let you go and get back to your wonderful, beautiful family as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And thanks to our great experts. We will see you. Yeah, they were really awesome. Thank you. Thank you, Rose. And thank you all for watching. Before we go, I asked the great Columbia Law School professor, Kimberly Crenshaw, how we could be allies of the Black community. And she said, simply say their names. And so I'm going to do that now. We use this cover story from Time Magazine a few months ago, where you're seeing a painting by Titus Caffer on the left, the blue glove of the pandemic, a mother and child. And on the right, this photograph of a young Larcinia Floyd with her son, George. She would be killed. She would die. I'm so sorry. She would die 2 years almost to the day that he would be killed in Minneapolis. And now they're buried together in in Houston, in their hometown, buried next to each other. And so now we are going to use this list that our friend Rehajan, who is a devoted viewer of this show, who has put together a list for us to read. She said, say their names. So I have been, because this list is so long, every episode I've been reading one page. And now we're going to come to page 3. And this tells you how sad it is to see names of people killed by police as well as by white supremacists. Ezell Ford, Michael Brown Jr., Eric Garner, Pearlie Golden, age 93. Just look at the Michael Brown, age 18, Pearlie Golden, age 93, Gabriela Navarez, 22, Yvette Smith, Renisha McBride, killed by a white supremacist, Andy Lopez, age 13, Miriam Carey, age 34, Chaim Livingston, Kayla Moore, Hadia Pendleton, Shelley Frey, Timothy Russell and Melissa Williams, Shalana Weldon, Alicia Thomas, Chantel Davis, Charmel Edwards, Rekia Boyd, Cherise Francis, Trayvon Martin, shot by a vigilante, Ayanna Stanley Jones, age 7, Marcelo Lucero, beaten and killed by white supremacists in 2008, Brandon McClelland, killed when dragged by a car driven by white supremacists, Ravi Budu, killed in police custody. We had his brother Ryan on the show with us, talking about why his brother's name should be said. Tanika Wilson, Katherine Johnston, age 92. Michael Sandy, chased by homophobes in their car and struck on October 8th, 2006, died of his injuries 5 days later. Alberta Spruill, Kendra James, Balbir Singh Sodhi, died in 2001, the first person killed in the aftermath of the 9/11 attacks. And he was shot for no other reason than he had a turban on. Latanya Haggerty in 99. And this list goes on. This is a list that put together by Rahajan. Thank you so much for being with us here today. We will continue to talk to experts on all aspects of the pandemic and also talk to folks who are trying to help us understand this moment in time as we get ready for the elections as well. And with that, quick thank yous to our sponsors for making it possible to have this show. Charles Cunnincarroll, The Inventor in You, a step-by-step guide to your first invention, developer of more than 80 patents at Inventor Charles, and guidetoinvention.com is his website. So please check it out. We're also grateful to nonbelievable.com, divinely delicious cookies on a mission, 20% off with the code SREE. Please check that out. We're also grateful to hotstar.com. The newest Indian films with subtitles are skipping theaters and coming straight to your home exclusively on hotstar.com/US. Tomorrow at 11 a.m. Eastern, the best of She's on Call, surgeons talking about healthcare and so much more. And finally, please join the more than 1,000 certified professionals who have shared their photos and their certificates. mrac.co/social, a free course on social media that I put together with Muckrack Academy. mrac.co/social, mrac.co/social. And finally, a big thank you to our friends at Rise or Fall Together, the One Shared World Interdependent Summit. You can see my bald head at the top of this. Renee Fleming, David Nabarro, Jairam Ramesh, Kekashan Basu, and so many more. Free conference. Register now, mshared.world, mshared.world/live. oneshared.world/live. It's on September 17th, a free conference. Please sign up. Thank you very much, everybody, for being here. And we'll see you very soon on this show. And also check out our archives, youtube.com/Sreenet, and my email, sree@sreenet.com. Thanks for